With the Ouya officially out, is it a game console for the future or just a phone with no screen? Find out in our review. Hey everybody, I'm Chris Wook. When the Ouya first hit its funding goal on Kickstarter, a lot of people were excited and a lot of people just didn't care. That still seems to be the case when you talk to people about the Ouya. The question is it worth it for you? Well, that depends on what you're looking for. To see what I mean, let's get started with the review. While you might expect top-of-the-line specs in a unit ostensibly dedicated to gaming, that's not what you get with the Ouya, though the specs aren't particularly wimpy either. Powered by a Tegra 3 chipset, it runs a 1.7 GHz quad-core CPU and ULP GPU, along with 1 GB of RAM and 8 GB of internal storage. For connectivity, it has 802.11b, G, and N Wi-Fi, wired Ethernet, and Bluetooth LE 4.0. More on that later. It's got one standard USB slot and one micro USB slot, and video output is through HDMI. Current gen high-end phones blow those specs away, but keep in mind that this box only costs $99 right now. The console itself is fairly small, essentially a 3-inch cube, though a bit stylized. Setup is super simple. Plug in the AC adapter, plug in an HDMI cable, and you're all set. If you've ever used an Xbox 360 controller, the Ouya's controller should look and feel very familiar. It's not quite as smooth in its general feel, and obviously the buttons are labeled differently. In an entirely unsurprising twist, instead of the traditional letters like you might expect to see on a console controller, you've got the letters O, U, Y, and A. Guess what that spells? Where the controller gets different is its built-in touchpad. This isn't clearly marked on the controller, and at first I honestly had no idea it was there, but it's a very cool feature, especially when you're using an app instead of gaming. On either side of the controller, there's a removable faceplate with a AA battery underneath each. I've heard stories of these becoming loose, but during my time with the console, I never noticed this. It is a little weird taking off two different faceplates to change the batteries, but it's not a huge deal. It's worth noting that you can also use a PS3 controller via Bluetooth or a wired Xbox 360 controller via USB. The Ouya runs Android 4.1 Jelly Bean, but you probably won't ever notice unless you go look under the hood. The interface is entirely Ouya with no trace of Android aside from the occasional progress dialog or pop-up. Once the Ouya is turned on, you're met with a screen offering 4 options. Play is a simple list of all the games you have installed. Discover is where you go to browse all the games and apps available on the Ouya. Make is mainly for developers, although it's also useful for those who want to sideload apps, as there's no Play Store here. Finally, Manage is where you change console options, check for updates, and generally, well, manage things. The Ouya uses a try-before-you-buy model, so any game you see can be downloaded and played for free. What you get to play from the game and how long you get to play it is entirely up to the developer. Some games are short demos or just demos of a single mode in a game, while others basically give you the entire game for free and ask for donations. There are some cool games available, but the selection is the area I think that Ouya is lacking the most right now. For every interesting game, there are 10 games that are either straight ports of simple Android games or are just plain bad. The one thing the Ouya needs most is a killer app, one game that by itself makes the system worth buying. In addition to games, there are a few rudimentary media box features. For a long time, the only streaming app that Ouya had was Twitch TV, a service for gaming streams. Recently, though, it got support for Plex, which greatly increases its use as a media box. Now, the one thing that will definitely make the system worth buying for a lot of people exists in a legal gray area: emulators. There are a ton of emulators available right in the Ouya store, everything from the original NES to the PlayStation to odd systems like the MSX are available. These aren't illegal by themselves, but chances are a lot of the ROMs you might use with them are. Still, I'm sure this will sell more than a few units. Right now, the main thing that the Ouya delivers is potential. Well, that and a lot of emulators. It's definitely a neat little device, and for $99 it's not quite an impulse buy, but it's close. If you're looking for really compelling games, they're not quite there. Yet, anyway. Luckily, the try-before-you-buy model keeps you from buying a game you end up hating. The main thing is, if Netflix and other similar apps come to the system, and a couple great games, then it'll really be worth it. We've got a written companion to this video at AndroidAuthority.com. You can find the link to the article down in the description. Now make sure to stay tuned to Android Authority for more reviews, news, Q&A, giveaways, and more. I'm Chris Wook, and as always, thank you for watching.